Okay, let's kick off this explainer with a shocking number. 50 minutes and 26 seconds. Wrap your head around that for a second, because that is the exact time it took a humanoid robot to recently crush the human half-marathon world record over in Beijing. And look, this wasn't just a win in some experimental, heavily controlled robotics category. Now, this machine physically outpaced the absolute fastest biological humans on Earth over a full 21-kilometer distance. So, welcome to today's explainer. We're going to dive into how AI has officially moved way past the chatbot phase, the era where it just talks to us, and has crossed into a staggering new era of real-world execution, physical robotics, and massive corporate monetization. The developments we've seen recently prove that we are no longer just experimenting in the lab, we are deploying.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the physical AI era, the rise of autonomous agents, the $600 billion infrastructure war, shifting big tech alliances, and finally, we'll wrap up with regulation and human impact. Let's jump right into Section 1, the physical AI era, where we are rapidly moving from prototypes right into full-scale production. The sheer scale of ambition we're seeing here is just staggering. OpenAI-backed robotics company 1X has officially opened a massive 58,000-square-foot factory down in Hayward, California. And I want to be clear, this isn't a research lab. It's a true, dedicated manufacturing facility designed to pump out 10,000 of their neo-humanoids in its first year alone. By vertically integrating, meaning they're building their own motors and electronics entirely in-house, they are targeting a consumer price point of around $20,000. That literally pulls the concept of a home assistant robot right out of a sci-fi movie and drops it directly into the consumer retail market.
Now, you might be wondering, why are these robots suddenly succeeding in the real world? Well, it's because they're fundamentally shifting where their brains live. Historically, robots relied heavily on cloud compute. That meant there was a delay, a latency between the robot seeing an object and actually reacting to it. Think about it. You absolutely can't have a robot safely chopping vegetables in your kitchen if it has to wait for a server across the country to tell it to stop its hand. So they are shifting to having server-class NVIDIA Jetson Thor AI chips built right into their physical spines. This onboard compute allows for real-time, zero-latency inference, which is exactly what makes safe, dynamic, real-world interaction with humans possible. Moving right along to Section 2, the rise of autonomous agents, and quite frankly, the end of the chatbot. We are currently living right in the middle of a crucial paradigm shift. We are moving away from passive chatbots that just sit there and respond to text prompts toward active, autonomous agents that actually get things done. Unlike a simple chatbot, an agent can independently plan out a process, access internal corporate systems, and execute multi-step tasks all on its own. For example, SAP recently demonstrated these new ERP agents that don't just alert you that inventory is low, they independently spot the supply shortage, go out and source a vendor, and execute the purchase order entirely without human intervention. So how do you actually manage this totally new digital workforce? Well, we are seeing the rapid rise of governed enterprise agentic platforms. Platforms like Google's Gemini Enterprise are stepping up to fuel creative technology and innovation workflows. They're designed to act as a central control layer, basically a highly secure environment where these new digital coworkers are built, governed, and monitored so they can safely integrate into a company's existing network. But to deploy these agents safely, companies have to adopt a completely new operational lifecycle. You can't just unleash an AI loose on your company's proprietary data. It starts with carefully defining the desired business outcome, and then selecting the exact right model for that specific job. From there, you connect the enterprise tools securely, and, this is absolutely crucial, you establish deep observability to monitor and govern the agent's ongoing actions in real time. All right, Section 3, the $600 billion infrastructure war. Let's talk about CapEx and compute. If we follow the money, the sheer scale of this physical build-out is just hard to comprehend. We're talking about Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon committing roughly $600 billion combined to AI capital expenditures in 2026 alone. This astronomical amount of cash is being aggressively deployed to build out massive new data centers, secure specialized custom silicon, and tap into the power grids required to keep these agentic systems and models running at scale. As you can imagine, with data demands absolutely exploding from this infrastructure boom, telecommunications networks are being forced to adapt. And fast. They are no longer just passive pipelines routing traffic from point A to point B. Instead, they're evolving into dynamic, self-learning AI ecosystems. Carriers are deploying edge nodes and predictive modeling to route traffic dynamically, effectively sensing and adapting to massive compute loads in real time to prevent bottlenecks and ensure low latency. However, there is a massive friction point in all of this: the electrical grid. Actually, to combat these extreme energy demands, a massive architectural shift called the one-bit LLM revolution is emerging, and it's a real game changer. Research into architectures like BitNet B1.58 shows that by fundamentally simplifying the underlying math the AI uses, we can reduce energy consumption by a staggering 70 to 82%. This breakthrough could completely decouple AI from those expensive data centers we just talked about, allowing massive 100 billion parameter frontier models to run locally right on your everyday consumer CPU. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, Shifting Big Tech Alliances and the Rise of the New Duopolies. If you want to know how fast this is moving, look at just one hyper-compressed week in late April of 2026. On the 23rd, OpenAI launched the Agentic GPT 5.5. The very next day, DeepSeek dropped its V4 model with open weights under a commercial MIT license, totally upending the pricing market overnight. By the 27th, Microsoft and OpenAI made historical rewrites to their partnership, and then by the 29th, the big tech earnings calls validated that massive $600 billion capex spending cycle we just discussed. It is moving at breakneck speed. To fund these massive compute needs, new hyperscaler duopolies have rapidly formed. Think about this: Google and Amazon have essentially teamed up, committing up to $65 billion combined to back Anthropic. Meanwhile, Microsoft and OpenAI have radically restructured their historically exclusive relationship, moving instead to a non-exclusive IP license all the way through 2032. Every single major frontier lab is now backed by a multi-cloud hyperscaler alliance. So, what does this actually mean for you? Well, it's a massive win for the enterprise. The removal of Microsoft's Azure exclusivity over OpenAI's models and the total deletion of that highly debated AGI clause means that enterprise CIOs finally have the vendor portability they've been begging for. You are no longer locked into a single cloud provider if you want to deploy top-tier AI. The market has finally blown wide open.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, Regulation and Human Impact. We need to talk about the real-world friction of adoption.
The immediate impacts of all this technology are undeniably rippling through society. In the tech sector alone, major players like Snap and Meta recently laid off over 9,000 workers, and they explicitly cited AI coding efficiency and productivity as the reason why smaller teams can now output the exact same amount of work. Meanwhile, the EU AI Act trialogue has finalized hard enforcement dates, aiming to strictly regulate high-risk systems by December 2027. And in the legal system, courts are actively sanctioning lawyers, including a recent $145,000 penalty for submitting hallucinated AI-generated case law. We are definitely seeing the painful growing pains of a massive technological shift.
So how do organizations survive this transition and mitigate these real-world errors? Well, they're turning to structured learning models, like the ARA framework. ARA stands for Aware, Understand, Refine, and Apply. It functions as a continuous learning and capacity-building engine. You see, it's not just about handing your employees an AI tool and saying, good luck. It builds a culture of continuous observation and refinement, ensuring that humans remain firmly in the loop, constantly validating and improving the very systems they use every day. Ultimately, as AI firmly moves away from conversational chatbots and straight into real-world execution and automation, the entire landscape changes. So, the most critical question you need to ask yourself going forward is not what the AI can technically do, but what work is actually safe to delegate.